Have you been thinking about making the move to Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to know how do I pick the best neighborhood for me and my family? Well, in today's video, I'm gonna give you guys 5 tips on how to pick the best neighborhood and what are some major things you need to consider prior to picking your neighborhood. Prior to you even considering cities, I want you guys to understand your commute. If you haven't picked an actual job yet and you're just kind of in the beginning stages of figuring out Arizona, whether or not you even want to move here, this might be a little bit more of a difficult task, but definitely consider your commute because we want to make sure you're not living 2 hours away. This can be difficult if you're not familiar with these areas. So what I highly suggest is if you're not quite ready to hop on that Zoom call with me, I would go onto Google Maps and type in these different cities that you're interested in compared to maybe an ideal area of where your work would be. So for example, maybe you are going to be working in downtown Phoenix, most likely. Make sure you specify where in Phoenix because Phoenix can be a 45-minute spread from the very bottom of Phoenix to the very top of Phoenix. But let's say downtown Phoenix, so you put a pin right in the center. Then after you do that, go ahead and type in Gilbert, Arizona, or go ahead and type in Waddell, Arizona. And granted, these areas do have, quite large spaces. So for example, Gilbert is a very large city. So even if you just type in Gilbert, it's gonna give you a general ideal. So keep that in mind as well. Once we do sit down on Zoom and go over a little bit more of the cities, we can kind of specify exactly where in Gilbert or where in Waddell, etc. But definitely consider that time, right? So if it says 2 hours, which you won't, but you get my point. If you don't want to drive 2 hours, then that wouldn't work. So a lot of the times my clients will work in a certain area and they think based off of the map, it's going to be a certain distance, but in reality, it's either further or it's shorter, which would obviously open up a couple more options for you as well. So keep this in mind as we're thinking about the whole commuting process. I don't want you guys to have to drive 2 hours. A lot of you guys are already driving, an hour to commute to work, which isn't too bad depending on where you're coming from, but highly consider trying to think about the area that you're going to work and base your cities off of that. Also, another thing you want to consider is basing your location off of your price point. So for example, one larger category is going to be East Valley and West Valley. If you guys haven't seen my videos in the past, basically East Valley and West Valley are explained by cutting Phoenix right down the center. On the left-hand side is going to be the West Valley. On the right-hand side is going to be the East Valley. East Valley is typically about $100,000 more expensive on average. There are some outlier cities that are involved with that. For example, maybe Casa Grande, Santan Valley, and Maricopa are 3 of them that kind of come off the top of my head. But majority of the time, the West Valley is going to be a little bit more affordable. So one of the questions you want to ask yourself is, are you looking for more of a bang for your buck kind of situation? Maybe the West Valley is going to be a better spot for you. Or even if you're not looking for a bang for your buck, you still want a beautiful house. For me personally, I've lived in the West Valley all of my life, besides when I lived in Denver for about 1.5 years. And I will always live in the West Valley. I just don't find it needed to spend $100,000 more for very similar things. Granted, a lot of people do like the East Valley because they say it has more amenities like more shopping, more food, more mom and pop options, right? So if you're looking for that, maybe that is a good option. Highly suggest doing more and more research on these different cities as you guys are planning your move. But that's one of the things that I don't necessarily care about. I feel like the West Valley has plenty of food options for me, and it's also more affordable to live here. Another reason why people do like the East Valley a little bit more, specifically Gilbert and Chandler, is they're known to have really great schools. So maybe that's an option for you. North Phoenix, some of those areas have really great schools. But I don't know how big of a trade-off is like a West Valley school versus an East Valley school price-wise on houses. Like how much more is the education? Like how much better is it? I don't know, and that's something for you guys to decide. I don't have kids. I didn't go to school over there. I went to school in the West Valley, and I only went to, a charter prep school here. So my opinion is almost irrelevant. I want you guys to do your research. If you haven't gone and looked up schools and things like that, and that's important to you, definitely do that. I have some links down below so you guys can check out different schools and also research different neighborhoods. Niche.com is a really good resource for that. On there, you can find different reviews of different neighborhoods and different schools and things along those lines. Obviously, take everything with a grain of salt, guys. People don't leave amazing reviews on schools typically. They only leave negative reviews, and that goes with the same with housing, right? People don't, I love my neighborhood, for example. I love it. There's no complaints really besides the HOA being annoying sometimes, but that's all HOAs. I have never thought, let me go on my community page and leave a good review, right? I don't think anyone has. If someone upset me, that would be a different story. I might feel a little bit more eager to leave a negative review versus a positive review. So anyways, take all of this with a grain of salt and just make sure you do your research, because for me personally, I would rather be on the West Valley because it's more affordable. I can get similar education, in my personal opinion, for a lot more of affordable pricing. That will help you cut down on city options immensely. So commute, price point is another thing, price point / East versus West Valley. The West Valley, your average price point is going to be closer to like that $550, $600 price point. Granted, there's, million plus homes here. There's $400,000 homes here. East Valley, really to get like your minimum, besides those like 3 outlier cities that I talked about, which are very much on the further outskirts, I would say your average price point is going to be closer to $650 to $700, right? So you have to keep these things in mind as you're searching. If you want to be in a $450 price point, West Valley all day, or those 3 cities that I had mentioned previously. If you don't mind spending a little bit more and your budget is a little bit higher, closer to $700, $750, $800, East Valley, beautiful place to live, but you might want to have a bigger house. So maybe West Valley, right? These are all the things that we talk about in our Zoom meetings. If you guys are interested in doing a Zoom meeting with me, my number and email are popping up. I would love to sit down with you guys and chat. Sometimes my clients are reaching out a year before we actually meet and do anything. And I find that that's really helpful for them, because then they can kind of get an idea of how to plan. I'm a huge planner. Most of my clients are. So we love sitting down and going over a huge plan. That's like my dream come true, is just planning all day, is probably what my boyfriend would say. But seriously, it helps a lot. The meetings are about an hour to an hour 15, and I'm answering all the questions for you guys. And we're really narrowing down on cities so you guys can decide what is the best area for you and your family. Another huge thing that my clients are always bringing up is amenities. Amenities are really important to some people and not so important to others. That is a thing that you need to consider for sure, because there's not too many neighborhoods here in Arizona that offer a lot of amenities. There's some bigger, master planned communities that offer pools and pickleball, and they have golf courses and things along those lines. But obviously that comes with a price, right? So that comes with a higher price point typically, but also it comes with a higher HOA. So for example, some of these neighborhoods that I'm referring to would be Estrella Mountain Ranch. One of my clients, actually 2 of my clients, just moved there from my YouTube channel, and they really love the idea of the amenities, the pool. They have pickleball there. They have actually 2 pools. They have a kayaking thing. You can do a small sailboat there. So that is really cool, but the HOA is typically a little bit higher. So I believe their HOA is a little over $100-ish, and the average price point is going to be closer to $500, $550. Granted, there are some options a little bit lower, but I would say on average, that's the price point that you want to consider if you're wanting to be in Estrella Mountain Ranch. Another one is going to be a Verrado. You guys know I'm a Verrado fanatic. I love Verrado. It's a beautiful area, and it's one of my personal favorites. They have 2 community pools, a fitness center. Estrella Mountain Ranch also has a fitness center. They have a golf course in the neighborhood. They have community events, right? Granted, you don't have to live in Verrado to be a part of the community events majority of the time, but that is something that's special about Verrado that maybe I don't get in my neighborhood. My neighborhood doesn't have anything crazy like that, but the big difference is the HOA versus my HOA. The HOA in Verrado is going to be, I think it's $120-ish also, but you have a really weird equation that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's basically a percentage of your purchase price that goes into even getting into Verrado to keep up with the community. So on average, I would say if the home is $650, you're probably looking about $4,000 on top of all the other things that you have to consider when purchasing a home. So that might not be in the budget or the preferred budget, right? And maybe you don't care necessarily about the community pool because you really think that you would like it, of course. Like, I like the idea of having a community pool and a fitness center, but in reality, am I actually going to use it? I don't know, probably not, right? So my community, for example, the HOA is, I think it's like $230 quarterly. I don't think I would actually end up using the pool. Maybe I would use the pickleball things, but you don't have to be in the community to probably even use the pickleball stuff, right? Like, I don't know that they're necessarily carding you to make sure you're a resident there. That's usually the fitness center and the pools on average, right? So if you don't care about those things, maybe picking a neighborhood that doesn't have that is a better option. Average price point in Verrado, probably closer to $550, $600. So again, similar to Estrella Mountain Ranch, and this is all in the West Valley. Another community that you might want to consider is Marley Park. Marley Park has, I believe, 2 community pools as well, and they have like a little hangout spot and barbecue pits and things along those lines. So that might be an option for you. Vistancia is a really pretty large master plan community. I'm not sure if they do have a community pool or not. I think that they might, but that will be a question for a different time. Another community that people really like is Norterra, or for example, the East Valley. Maybe you want to be in Eastmark where they have community pools and play pools for the kids and things like that, right? These are all things to consider, but another thing to consider is going to be, even if you don't live in that specific community, a lot of our cities do have some sort of community center. So for example, Avondale, which is where I live North Avondale, we have a community center that has like a library, it has pools, it has all of that stuff that as a resident of Avondale, I can go and use. Sometimes they do have small fees associated with it. I haven't been to that pool and I probably never will be because I just don't usually use community pools. And there's nothing against them. It's just, am I gonna really get up, get dressed? I don't have kids. It just doesn't seem fun to me, but that's an option for you and your family. Surprise has one, Goodyear has one, right? So maybe instead of being in Estrella Mountain Ranch where the average price point's a little bit higher and they have their own community pools, you can still use Goodyear's community pool. You don't have to use that. They have pickleball courts at the Goodyear Center. They have baseball fields. They have a gaming center. They have all of this stuff that's very similar to the amenities that specifically Estrella Mountain Ranch has or specifically Verrado has. So if that's something that you're interested in, just let me know in advance and we can kind of narrow down those communities for you as well. But definitely think about, do you want amenities or not? Because it's going to limit exactly what cities you are interested in. Another thing to consider when picking your neighborhood is, do you want a new home versus a resale home? Perfect example is my personal property. Do I love new homes? Absolutely. Would I purchase a new home? Absolutely. But there are no new homes in my preferred area. I like to live more central to the West Valley versus like, I do love Verrado, but that is one of the cons of living there is it is a little bit further out. I'm a realtor, obviously, and I have to go to the East Valley. I have to go to North Phoenix. And granted, it's only an extra 20 minutes, but 20 minutes is a lot of time when you're driving all day, right? So I like where I live because of that, but there are no new homes in my area. So I had to pick a resale home, which comes with its, cons, of course. I'm redoing pretty much everything in my house. I've already painted the cabinets. I just got a quote for countertops. I have to do the backyard, right? Like versus if I bought a new home, some of these things would already have been completed for me. A new home is not going to be available in every single city. So for example, me being in North Avondale, we don't have anything in this area. South Avondale, if you're open to that area, definitely has some new homes. Parts of Goodyear have new homes, parts of them don't. The main portion of Goodyear, where I call it kind of like the box, where it's the peak of North Avondale, Litchfield Park, and Goodyear, which is a very popular place to live, they don't have new homes in this area. So it wouldn't be an option. If you want a new home and that's mandatory for you, these are the areas that you're gonna look. So for example, new home options, so you guys can do some research after this video. I have tons and tons of videos. I probably have like 70 plus videos on this channel at this point. I highly suggest going and watching the different playlists. If one of these cities or areas that I've mentioned today piques your interest, go and watch those videos. And don't forget to subscribe. I post videos every Monday at 5 p.m. so you guys can learn more about living in Phoenix, Arizona. One of the areas for new homes, Estrella Mountain Ranch. Verrado has a couple new homes. Buckeye has tons and tons of new homes. Waddell has tons of new homes. Portion of Surprise has tons of new homes. South Avondale. But there's something to mention about all of these areas is they're all kind of like on the outskirts of all of these cities. I'll pop up a map so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about and kind of do an outline of where these places are. But you're not gonna see as many new homes in the center. There may be a one-off neighborhood that kind of has been built and has a few homes in it, maybe like 50 homes or something like that. But it's not gonna be these big old master plan communities most likely because they've kind of already built out those areas. So if you think of Phoenix in the middle, homes go like that. So you're always being built out from the center of Phoenix for the most part, and those outskirts are where majority of the new homes are gonna be. Keep that in mind. If you don't mind living in an older home, but maybe it has newer features on the inside, like it does have the new countertops, or it does have, the newer outside spaces, it's been updated, then you definitely can find those maybe more in the closer portions, but you can't get like an actual new build typically that's never been lived in. So something to keep in mind, do we want a new home or are we okay with the resale home? And what comes with a resale home? Older roof typically, older HVAC, older hot water heater, things like that. Are we willing to sacrifice to be in the area that we really, really want? Or should we start on the outskirts and make our way in as we upgrade our home once we move into Arizona? And lastly, something you want to consider, granted this is not the last thing, there's so many things to consider and why I highly suggest doing the Zoom call with me. Number and email are popping up again, so you guys can get those scheduled. But something I highly suggest you consider is going to be traffic. What type of traffic are you wanting? Lots of my clients are leaving California and moving to Arizona, and one of the things that they mentioned to me is that they do not want to deal with the busyness anymore. That's why they're leaving California. And so if that's the case, we want to consider moving to cities that are not going to be the busiest that you're trying to avoid, right? So for example, the clients that are moving to Estrella Mountain Ranch, both of them actually are moving from California, and something that they both said is they are done with the hustle and bustle of California. They don't want the traffic anymore. So when we were considering two of their favorite neighborhoods, Verrado and Estrella Mountain Ranch, they both wanted those amenities as well. We really cut out Verrado because Verrado has become a more popular area to live in. Lots of people do go to Verrado that don't live in Verrado necessarily, and it's only gonna get busier. Once Verrado builds out this Verrado marketplace that's gonna be coming, they're gonna have Super Target, Home Goods, I think Ross, Ulta, a huge movie theater, tons of restaurants. And it's right off the I-10, you're gonna see so much more people flocking to that area that don't necessarily live in that area, which for me, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all. I live right off of one of the busiest streets in the West Valley, Dysart Road. So it doesn't bother me. I actually enjoy it. I want there to be more restaurants and more things like that. But Estrella Mountain Ranch, you really aren't going up there unless you live in Estrella Mountain Ranch, which was very appealing to both of those people because they're just, again, done with the hustle and bustle. They want to be able to get to the grocery store super quickly without having to fight traffic and things along those lines. So Estrella Mountain Ranch was a really good option. If you're looking to stay out of the hustle and bustle, there's very specific areas, and Phoenix is a huge major metro. It's going to be busy in a lot of those areas. So if you still want to be 45 minutes from Phoenix, there's some sacrifices that you're going to have to make, right? And we talk about all this stuff. So I can't really narrow it down without speaking to people, because it's really hard to kind of get all the information that I need. And this video could be 3 hours long if I go over every single thing that we talk about, to make sure that we're picking the city that's going to be right for you and your family. But we want to stay on the outskirts. Again, if we're thinking we want to be less busy, we probably want to stay on the outskirts. Verrado is right next to the I-10. We probably don't want to be cities that are right next to one of the busiest highways in America, right? Where you're going all the way from California to Florida on that freeway. So we want to avoid that for sure. Or if we're going to be there, maybe we want to be further back in that community that's not super close to the 10. So for example, Verrado does have some communities towards the back that aren't as busy, but you're still going to have, lots of shopping and people are still going to go to Verrado, versus Estrella Mountain Ranch is out of the way. Vistancia is another one. Most of the time people are not driving up to Vistancia because it's kind of out of the way, and unless you live there, there's no point in going up there. So maybe that's an area if you want to have the amenities, but you don't want to be super close to tons of people. That North Phoenix area is not super busy depending on where you are in there. So that could be an option. North Peoria could also be an option depending on where. It's just all dependent on what's too busy to you, right? So that's something that I'll have to see you, hear your experiences to be able to dictate whether or not I think these areas are gonna be too busy for you. Keep in mind, guys, I am a Phoenix native. I've lived here 98% of the time. Again, besides the 1 little year and a half that I lived in Denver, I've lived here my entire life. My mom's also a realtor. I've been surrounded by housing and locations, and that's literally what I eat, breathe, sleep is real estate. So I can really help you guys narrow down these locations, but I just have to get in front of you and be able to talk to you because everyone's experience is so different. My clients from Jersey, for example, didn't even know that you can ride your Can-Ams and stuff on the street here because that's illegal there. Or some of my clients from California don't know certain things about this area too, or whatever it is. Even if you've been here a couple times, it's really hard to understand how this area works unless you actually live here and have been here majority of your life. So I'll be able to help you guys with that. And that concludes the 5 tips that I have for you guys in regards to picking a location. Again, this is just a small portion of the things that you need to consider. There's so much that goes into relocating that I can help you guys with. My number and email are popping up. If you guys have questions, if you're not quite ready for the Zoom call, but you just want to talk and kind of get an idea of what's going on, do that too. I'm here, I'm an open book and ready to help you guys. And don't forget to subscribe. I post videos every Monday at 5 p.m. I have tons of videos on this channel where you can learn anything and everything about Phoenix, Arizona. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.